Hi everyone, in this video we are going to go over how we simplify radicals. So first off, what's a radical? It's going to be something that looks like this, anything that has either a square root, a cube root, a fourth root, anything along those lines. So that is what a radical is. Now in this lesson specifically, we're going to be reducing square roots. So when you're trying to reduce radicals, or square root radicals I should say, you have to pay attention to what perfect squares are. Okay, and a perfect square is just a number that you get from squaring a number. So basically, we can generate a list of perfect squares by just squaring numbers, right? So 2 squared gives us 4, 3 squared gives us 9, 4 squared gives us 16, 5 squared gives us 25. Now make sure you're copying this down because I am going to be referring to this list as you do this worksheet. So make sure that you copy this list down so that you have it. So we have 6 squared is 36, 7 squared, 49, 8 squared, 64, 9 squared, 81, 10 squared, 100, and then we'll do 11 squared, 121, 12 squared, 144, 13 squared, 169, 14 squared is 196, and 15 squared is 225. Now, I would say that you should have all of these at least memorized. I remember I had a teacher make me memorize these in my freshman year, I think, and it was actually quite useful to have all of these memorized. So I would at least have up to 20 or up to 15 memorized, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys up to 20. So 16 squared is 256. 17 squared, oops. Let's see, this one I don't have memorized. 289. 18 squared is going to be 324. 19 squared is 361. And 20 squared is going to be 400. Okay, so these numbers here are going to be what kind of factors we are looking for as we break these radicals down. Okay. So let's go ahead. I don't want to start with 1. There's a reason why I don't want to start with 1. So we're going to go ahead and just move on to 2. We'll go back and do 1 later. Okay. So what your job is to figure out which of these numbers on the right-hand side there are going to be a factor of 128. Okay. So basically what you're going to want to do is find where 128 would fit in. So if I look, 128 would go right here. Right, it would go in between 144 and 121. So that tells me I'm going to start at 121. And I want to find the biggest number that is a factor, biggest perfect square that's a factor of 128. So I'm going to do 128 divided by 121. Now I know that this is not a factor because I don't get a whole number out. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I do 128 divided by 100. Doesn't work. 128, oops, divided by 81. Does not work. 128 divided by 64. Does not work. 128. Oh, it does work. Oh my God. See, I just got like in the groove here. So yeah, this does work. And why do I know that 64 works? Because I get a whole number out. I get a 2. So that tells me that 64 is a factor. So that means that I could break 128 down into 64 times 2. All right. And I know that the square root of 64 is 8, so I get 8 root 2, and that is my answer. All right. So now we'll go ahead and try 4. So let's look at 150. 150 would go right here in between 169 and 144, so we'll start there. We're going to do 150 divided by 144. Does not work. 150 divided by 121. Does not work. 150 divided by 100. Does not work. Close, right? We got a nice decimal, but still not a whole number. 150 divided by 81 does not work. 150 divided by 64 does not work. 150 divided by 49 does not work. 150 divided by 36 does not work. 150 divided by 25, that one does work. Okay, so, and again, if you can do this quicker and you have a method that works quicker for you, by all means, use your method. I just like using this method because it allows the students who kind of need step-by-step instructions to kind of have that for themselves, all right? So then we can go ahead, we take the square root of 25, which is 5, and then the 6 stays in the hat, so we get 5 root 6. All right, so now let's go ahead, we're going to go to problem 1 here. Now, again, in order to be able to simplify this, you have to break it down so that you have a perfect square, okay? So if we do 70, right, 70 would start off right here at 64. So we're going to do 70 divided by 64. Does not work. 70 divided by 49. Does not work. 70 divided by 36. Does not work. 70 divided by 25, not going to work for me. 70 divided by 16, does not work. 70 divided by 9, does not work. And 70 divided by 4, did not work. So none of these worked. So guess what? You actually cannot simplify this at all. All right? So this guy would just stay as root 70. If there's no perfect squares you can pull out of it, it's got to stay like that. All right? All right. So I want you to go ahead and try number 3 here. So first off, I want you to find the biggest perfect square that's a factor of 384. So when you do that, hopefully you figured out that 64 times 6 is going to give me 384. So now we're going to go ahead and simplify this. What would be root 64 times 6 simplified? You should get 8 root 6. Awesome job. All right, now I want you to go ahead and try 210. So you may have figured out that there actually is no number that is going to work nicely for you. So 210 simplified is simply 210. There is no perfect square you can pull out of there. All right, cool. Now let's go ahead and try number 12. Now this one, right, do you see how 144 is on the list? 144 is right there on the list. Ooh, I didn't mean to erase. So square root of 144 is just 12. And hopefully you guys remember that, right? You would just put 12 for that. Awesome. So now let's go ahead. We're going to try something like 19. So we have to go ahead and break down 512. Now 512 is a big number. All right. So let's start off here at the 400. Okay. So we're going to do 512 divided by 400. Did not work. 512 divided by 361. Did not work. 512 divided by 324. Did not work. 512 divided by 289. Did not work. 512 divided by 256. That did work, right? So 2 times 256 is going to give me 512. So if you notice here with this radical, I have a negative 8 out in front. And all that means is that negative 8 is being multiplied, is multiplying with this root 512. So we're just going to leave him out in front. And he's going to chill for a bit. And we're going to do what we did before, break down our 512 into 256 times 2. All right, and the square root of 256 is 16. So we're going to get negative 8. And then what happens is the 16 comes out in front, and you have to multiply it by whatever is out in front. So I'm going to do 8 times 16. Ooh, whoops. I should do, sorry, negative 8 times 16. And I get negative 128 root 2. All right. Excuse me. So now let's go ahead. I want you to try this one. So first, I want you to figure out what 2 numbers should you break 20 down into? What's the biggest, make sure you include the biggest perfect square. So you're going to want to break 20 down into 4 times 5. And then go ahead and simplify this completely. So I get 8 times 2 root 5. It's going to give me 16 root 5.